Lisa Turner looked like every other mother in Brookhaven, warm smile, tidy home, and a daughter who adored her. But behind that perfect image, she was teaching little Emma a secret skill that would soon shock the entire town. Lisa Turner had always looked like the kind of woman who had her life perfectly together. Her neighbors in Brookhaven often described her as the mom everyone wished they could be. She kept her lawn neatly trimmed, packed homemade lunches for her daughter Emma every morning, and never missed a single parent-teacher meeting. On the outside, her world appeared calm and collected. But inside the Turner household, the cracks were beginning to show. It had started months earlier when the insurance office where Lisa worked downsized. She had been there for nearly 10 years, always on time, always dependable. But when her boss called her into his office and explained that her position was being eliminated, her stomach dropped. The severance check helped for a few weeks, but soon the bills stacked up like a wall she couldn't climb. Every envelope in the mail seemed to bring more bad news: overdue notices, utility reminders, and bank statements that made her chest tighten. She tried to find another job, but the local market was small and competitive. Each interview ended the same way: polite smiles, empty promises, and silence afterward. Her savings drained quickly. The rent was due. Emma's school needed new supplies. Her car needed repairs. Lisa began losing sleep, staring at the ceiling each night while her mind raced through numbers and unpaid debts. To cope, she started taking small drives to the nearby Target. It was her favorite store, a place that once symbolized normal life: clean aisles, familiar faces, soft background music. She'd walk through the aisles pretending everything was fine, touching things she couldn't afford and imagining the days when she could buy them without thinking twice. There was something strangely comforting about being surrounded by things she wanted but couldn't have. It made her feel like she still belonged in the world she was slowly slipping away from. One Saturday afternoon, she wandered into the home goods section. The shelves were filled with cozy blankets, scented candles, and shiny picture frames. She picked up a candle labeled Vanilla Woods, held it to her nose, and for a brief second, she felt calm again. Then she noticed a woman beside her slip a small bottle of lotion into her purse and walk away without a second glance. Lisa froze. No alarms went off. No one seemed to notice. The woman just disappeared into the crowd. That moment stayed with her. It wasn't just what the woman did. It was how easy it looked. That evening, Lisa couldn't shake the thought. She told herself she would never do something like that, but the idea had already planted itself deep in her mind. A week later, when she returned to the store, her eyes wandered to a clearance shelf filled with tiny items: lip glosses, batteries, small keychains. She picked up a tube of lipstick, glanced around, and before she could think twice, slipped it into her pocket. Her heart raced as she walked toward the exit, her palms sweating. When she made it outside and realized no one had stopped her, a strange mix of relief and guilt flooded through her. That night, she hid the lipstick in her dresser drawer, unable to look at it but too afraid to throw it away. It was her secret. A small, shameful token of what she'd done. It should have ended there, but it didn't. For the first time in months, Lisa felt like she had taken control of something, even if it was wrong. It wasn't about the lipstick. It was about the feeling that she could still get what she needed when the world refused to help her. And so began the quiet unraveling of Lisa Turner, the mother everyone thought they knew, in a town that would never see her the same way again. The first time Lisa took something, she convinced herself it would never happen again. It was just a one-time mistake, a desperate slip in a moment of weakness. But as days passed, the guilt began to fade, replaced by a quiet, dangerous sense of reassurance. She started believing that maybe, if she was careful enough, no one would ever find out. That small act had opened a door she couldn't close. At first, she only took things she felt were necessary: toothpaste, a pair of socks for Emma, a pack of batteries. She reasoned that these weren't luxuries but essentials. She told herself it wasn't really stealing, it was surviving. Every time she walked out of Target with something hidden in her bag, her nerves would tremble. But the fear always gave way to a pulse of adrenaline that made her feel alive again. After so many months of helplessness, that rush became addictive. Emma was always by her side during those shopping trips. She was 8, curious and trusting, trailing behind her mother through the aisles with wide eyes and a soft voice. She had no idea that their errands had become something more than ordinary. To her, these were simply Saturday outings with Mom. Lisa would smile and hold her daughter's hand and pretend everything was normal, but inside, she was already building a secret world that Emma couldn't see yet. One afternoon, Lisa made a choice she could never take back. They were in the toy section surrounded by rows of dolls, puzzles, and stickers. Emma pointed to a pack of glittery stickers, her eyes lighting up. Lisa looked at the price tag, only a few dollars, but even that seemed like too much. Something in her mind shifted. She glanced around, saw no one watching, and whispered to her daughter to put them in her jacket. It was meant to be playful, a quick trick, something that would save her a bit of embarrassment at the register. Emma hesitated but followed her mother's lead, not understanding what she was doing. When they left the store and no one stopped them, Lisa treated her to an ice cream cone as if nothing unusual had happened. That small reward sealed the lesson far deeper than she realized. Emma smiled, proud that she had done something her mother asked her to do. From that day on, while every trip to Target carried an unspoken plan, Lisa began choosing small items for Emma to hide, praising her for being brave and quiet. She turned the act into a game, calling it their secret shopping. Emma thought it was something fun between them, a way to make their errands special. But for Lisa, it was a way to share the risk, to make herself feel less guilty. If her daughter was part of it, then maybe it wasn't so bad. Maybe it was just something families did when times were hard. As weeks passed, Lisa grew bolder. She studied the store layout, learning where the cameras were placed and which employees seemed distracted. She even began timing her visits, choosing busy hours when the lines were long and the staff overwhelmed. What had started as a desperate impulse was now turning into a routine. Late at night, she'd stare at the growing collection of stolen items hidden in a box under her bed. Some she used, others she didn't even touch. It wasn't about the things anymore. It was about the feeling. Every item was proof that she could take control of a world that had made her feel powerless. She didn't see herself as a criminal. She saw herself as a mother doing what she had to do to survive. But in teaching Emma to steal, Lisa had done more than cross a moral line. She had planted a seed that would one day destroy the very image she tried to protect. The mother who once taught kindness and honesty was slowly becoming someone else, and soon, everyone would see it. By the time summer rolled around, stealing had become a part of Lisa's life as naturally as running errands or doing laundry. What once made her hands tremble now felt almost routine. She had developed methods, patterns, and little tricks that made her feel clever and invisible. It wasn't about random luck anymore. She had turned it into a plan. She called it, privately in her mind, the red bag routine. The red bag was big enough to carry groceries, but light enough to swing casually over her shoulder. It was worn and ordinary, something no one would look twice at. Lisa lined it with aluminum foil she found at home, an idea she'd read online one sleepless night. She discovered it could block store sensors, and to her surprise, it worked. Every time she walked past the security gates without a beep, her confidence grew stronger. Saturday became their ritual. Lisa and Emma would get ready early, drive out to different Target stores in nearby towns, and spend hours browsing. To anyone watching, they looked like a cheerful mother and daughter out shopping together. But to Lisa, each trip was a mission. She would take small electronics, makeup, skincare products, even toys, anything that could be hidden neatly in the red bag. Sometimes she sold the items online using local marketplace apps, describing them as unopened gifts or clearance finds. The extra money kept her rent paid and the lights on, giving her a sense of relief that felt almost like pride. Emma, still young and trusting, continued to play her part without understanding. She thought she was helping her mother with some kind of grown-up secret, something only the two of them shared. Lisa praised her for being brave and smart, for knowing how to act calm. It made Emma feel special, and it made Lisa feel less alone in her deception. But while Lisa felt invisible, others had started to notice. Target's loss prevention team had begun reviewing footage from multiple stores across the region. They kept seeing the same pattern. A woman with a red tote bag, sometimes with a child, always on weekends, always slipping in and out quickly. The woman's movements were careful, practiced. She never stayed too long in one section and always chose the busiest hours. At first, it was hard to connect the dots. But as the reports added up, her picture became clearer. One day, a security officer printed out still images from different store cameras. They lined them up side by side. The same red bag. The same posture, the same brown-haired woman holding the hand of a little girl. It was unmistakable. They didn't know her name yet, but they knew she'd be back. Meanwhile, Lisa began expanding her routine. She started visiting larger stores farther away, believing distance would keep her safe. Sometimes she'd drive 40 minutes just to hit a new target. She began to enjoy the drive, the feeling of escape. The quiet thrill of outsmarting a system she imagined was stacked against her. At home, though, the signs of her double life began to show. Closets filled with things they didn't need. Candles, purses, shoes, even kitchenware that still had price tags attached. Emma began asking why they had so much new stuff when her mother didn't have a job. Lisa brushed it off, saying she'd found great deals. What Lisa didn't realize was that Target's investigators were tracking her more closely with each passing week. Her red bag had made her easy to follow, her pattern easy to predict. Every success she celebrated brought her one step closer to exposure. Still, she couldn't stop. The rush had become part of her. It gave her something to look forward to, something that made her feel in control again. She believed she had mastered the game. What she didn't see was that the game was already playing her, and the people watching were waiting for the moment she'd make her final move. Rain poured down in thick sheets the day everything fell apart. The sky was gray and heavy, the kind of weather that made most people want to stay home. But for Lisa, it felt like the perfect day to blend in. Crowded parking lots, shoppers rushing in with umbrellas, employees distracted and cold. She thought it was an ideal setup. She didn't know that the store had been waiting for her. That morning had started like any other. She packed snacks for Emma, told her they were going on another shopping adventure, and tucked the familiar red bag into the back seat of her car. The ride to the Target on Elmwood Avenue was quiet except for the sound of rain against the windshield. Emma hummed softly in the back seat, unaware of what the day would bring. Inside the store, Lisa moved with her usual confidence. She had learned the layout from past visits. Electronics on the left, cosmetics near the center, exit close to the Starbucks kiosk. She steered the cart casually, her eyes darting between shelves and ceiling cameras. Her hands were steady, practiced. She slipped candles, shampoo, and a box of batteries into the red bag, the foil lining muffling the small sounds of plastic packaging. She didn't notice the man in plain clothes watching from a distance. He wasn't a regular shopper, but part of the store's loss prevention team. He had been briefed that morning about her pattern, her bag, and her habit of showing up with a child. The team had set up discreet cameras to monitor her every move. Lisa moved to the toy aisle, calling Emma over. She picked up a bracelet from the rack and handed it to her daughter. Emma looked confused. Lisa gave her the same quiet look she always did, the one that told her to hide it quickly. Emma slipped it into her jacket pocket and looked up for approval. Lisa smiled faintly, unaware that the small act had just sealed their fate. As they headed toward the exit, the store buzzed with noise. Carts rolling, scanners beeping, voices overlapping. It all sounded normal. Lisa pushed the cart casually, pretending to scroll through her phone. The rain outside made the glass doors glisten, and she could already feel the relief of being back in the car. She was just a few steps away when two hands reached out and grabbed her arms firmly. For a moment, she thought it was a mistake. Then she saw the badges. Another man stepped forward, calm but direct, asking her to come with them. The sound of the automatic doors opening and closing behind her felt distant, like the world had gone quiet. Emma stood frozen, her small body trembling as her mother was led away. They were taken into a small security office at the back of the store. The walls were plain, the lights harsh, and a monitor played back the footage of her filling the red bag. Lisa stared at the screen, her stomach twisting. There she was, every move recorded, every action clear. It didn't matter how careful she thought she'd been, they had been watching for weeks. When the police arrived, Lisa tried to explain. She said she had lost her job, that she didn't mean to hurt anyone, that she was just trying to take care of her child. But excuses couldn't undo the evidence piled against her. Emma sat silently in a corner, her jacket still zipped up, the bracelet hidden inside. As they were let out of the office, employees whispered, pretending not to stare. Outside, the rain hadn't stopped. It fell harder now, soaking through Lisa's coat as the flashing lights of a patrol car reflected off the wet pavement. She glanced at her daughter one last time before being guided into the back seat. Emma's face was pale, her eyes filled with confusion more than fear. In that moment, everything Lisa had built, every secret, every lie, every reason she told herself it was worth it, came crashing down. The red bag sat abandoned on the floor of the store, wet from the rain, its once clever lining now useless. The life she thought she was controlling had finally turned on her, and there was no escaping it anymore. The arrest of Lisa Turner spread through Brookhaven like wildfire. By the next morning, everyone seemed to know. The quiet, polite woman who once organized bake sales and volunteered at the school library was now on the front page of the local paper. The headline was blunt and impossible to ignore. Mother teaches child to steal from Target. Neighbors who once waved from their driveways whispered behind curtains. Parents who used to greet her at school pickup now avoided eye contact. The image of the perfect mother had shattered completely. In the first few days after her arrest, Lisa sat in a small county jail cell, replaying everything in her head. She thought about the first time she slipped that lipstick into her pocket. How harmless it had seemed. She remembered the thrill, the feeling of power, and the way she had convinced herself it wasn't hurting anyone. But what haunted her most wasn't the theft. It was the look on Emma's face as she was taken away. It was the confusion in her daughter's eyes. The innocence she had carelessly destroyed. Emma went to live with Lisa's mother, a quiet woman who rarely spoke about the situation. The child's world had turned upside down overnight. One day she was having ice cream with her mom after their secret shopping, and the next she was answering questions from police officers and social workers. The games she thought were harmless suddenly became heavy with meaning she didn't understand. At school, whispers followed her down the hall. Other kids had overheard their parents talking. Emma didn't know what to say, so she stayed silent. Lisa's court case moved quickly. The evidence was overwhelming. Footage from multiple stores, lists of stolen items, and even online sales traced back to her account. Her lawyer urged her to plead guilty, and she did. She couldn't deny what she had done. In court, she kept her eyes down as the prosecutor read out the charges: theft, contributing to the delinquency of a minor, child endangerment. Each word hit her like a weight she could barely carry. When it came time for sentencing, the judge spoke softly but firmly about choices, responsibility, and the damage done. Lisa listened, her hands trembling, knowing every word was true. She was sentenced to community service and probation, along with mandatory counseling. More than the punishment itself, it was the separation from Emma that broke her. Visits were allowed but limited. During those visits, Emma often sat quietly, coloring or staring at the floor. Lisa tried to explain, tried to apologize, but there were no words that could erase what she had taught her own child. Months passed, and the scandal faded from the headlines. But the story lingered in town as a cautionary tale. People still spoke of it in hushed tones, wondering how someone like Lisa could have done something so reckless. For many, she became a symbol of how easily desperation could twist good intentions into something dark. In time, Lisa began rebuilding her life piece by piece. She took classes, attended therapy, and found a part-time job through a local outreach program. She moved into a small apartment on the edge of town, all far from the neighborhood where everyone knew her name. Slowly, she began facing the truth she had avoided for so long. She hadn't just stolen from stores. She had stolen from her daughter, her trust, her childhood, her sense of right and wrong. Emma grew older, and while she eventually forgave her mother, the memory never left her completely. The lesson Lisa had meant to hide became one she could never take back. She spent years trying to prove that people could change, that even after losing everything, redemption was possible. But in Brookhaven, her name would always carry a shadow. To some, she was still the woman who taught her child to steal. To others, she was a reminder of how fragile a life can be when shame, pride, and fear mix together. Lisa Turner had once been the perfect picture of a devoted mother, and now she was the story everyone remembered when they said that sometimes the most ordinary people hide the darkest secrets.